Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akhil Patania. I'm VP for Solutions at Royal Cyber. The architect who was supposed to do this webinar has to travel on site, so it came on to me to walk you guys through our cloud migration strategy and what best practices we have been doing with our customers. So I'll be having this pleasure of walking you guys through some. Sorry, I was on mute, it seems. All right, so feel free to ask me any questions while we go through it. How we have broken down the agenda is I'll give you a quick overview about Royal Cyber, what we are, what we do. Then I'll quickly jump on to the migration package that we have been able to successfully implement for a number of customers using Amazon and latest IBM Vector Commerce build. Then we'll be touching upon our strategies. We'll also see some of the case studies towards the end. So feel free to ask me any questions if you have. So I'm going to start with that. So at Royal Cyber, so we are a company based out of Naperville. So Naperville is our headquarters, but we are present in more than 8 countries now. Uh, so US, Canada, Australia, Middle East, India, UK, Mexico. So we are 900 employees and growing. And so we kind of cover the complete IBM portfolio, which includes digital experience, T-Leaf, Unica, Marketing Cloud, digital analytics, e-commerce, middleware, order management, mobile solutions, and Sterling B2BI as well. So in addition to providing you the full service spectrum, which is implementation, migration, support, tuning, and training, we also have a lot of products that we have built over a period of time that we offer to our customers as a value add to enable them to go live in the market as soon as they can, so which kind of cuts down the time to go live considerably, and helps them to achieve their goals, targets, so on and so forth. And we keep out churning these add-ons or products that we have built every quarter. So it's not like once we start working with you, we'll give you what we have and not take care of in the future. We keep releasing these new add-ons, accelerators, and you can continue using them. We have been a long-standing IBM partner. We are the premium partner, and IBM has been kind enough to recognize our efforts and award us from time to time. A number of our solutions are already available on the IBM site. So if you go to the IBM site and search for Royal Cyber, you will be able to see some of our popular solutions. CyberShop is latest entrant to that. It's a native mobile application that we have built on top of Vector Commerce. You can also check out its demo from the iOS store. If you just search for CyberShop, you should be able to download the app and try it out. And a number of our case studies are also available on the IBM site. So that was a quick introduction. So let me start with the migration. And as we all know, migration is never a straightforward job, and it does take a lot of planning, discussions, brainstorming, trying to finalize the requirements that we want to move forward with, what we want to leave behind, so on and so forth. Uh, but thankfully, we have extensive experience doing it, and we have been able to break it down into a number of packages depending upon which version of Vector Commerce you are coming from and which version of Vector Commerce you want to move to. And since cloud has been accepted widely from the clients now, it has become really reasonably like IBM has also started to reasonably price their cloud offering. And as a result, we did see a surge of number of customers onboarding IBM Cloud. But there are still many customers who have more confidence in other platforms like AWS and so on and so forth, or they are long-standing customers of other platforms and they want to see if IBM SA Commerce can work on those platforms or not. So we have been able to successfully migrate a number of customers, and we have even created packages on those. So right now we are offering to move any of the customer who is on-prem or who is in other setup, but they want to use Amazon or software as their platform of choice. We can do the implementation in 90 business days flat and make them go live with the latest 8.0.4.8. And how we can do that and how we have been doing that, I'll be quickly walking through that as well. And I'll also touch upon the benefits that the latest version of SEO Commerce can bring you. Migration, as like other problems, it's just like an iceberg. So what you really see is just the tip of it, and you start planning accordingly. But when it comes to actually implementing the solution, uh, the tip of the iceberg is just the technical part of it, like which means like moving your physical data from one location to another, redesigning the database, re-architecting how the data would work. So that would be just your tip, and all the underlying work that there is with respect to planning, reorganization, transformation. It's a really big bulk, and it is close to 80% of the total migration effort that you will be spending time on. So what we do is we just try to understand what that 80% is, so that there's no hidden challenges that we encounter as we move forward on our commitment. So let's say if we are committing to have a 90 business day implementation plan, we really understand how it works, looking at what version you're sitting on and what version you want to achieve. And if you ask me how do we define migration, so and as per the industry standards, that it's usually defined as a 3 separate activities, like moving your stuff, then migrating it to a somewhere different location, and then upgrading it. Obviously, if you're moving your existing assets or attributes or whatever you have to a new platform, that would be just one part. But then you also need to upgrade it to the latest, since you're already doing that effort. It's a very good touch point where you can take care of all the challenges or all the wish list items that you have nicely stored in a drawer, which you always wanted to do. So this is the right time when you can actually do it. Even though they look like 3 different activities, but in any migration that we have done, they get combined as a single activity. So everything gets done in a single go. Obviously, because you cannot really use this migrated package unless you do go through all these 3 different processes. They're difficult, yes. Why they're difficult? Because there's so much which is not visible to the naked eye, and you start experiencing those issues or challenges as you move forward in this process. And looking at what we are, so again, it is different for each customer, depending upon what your current architecture looks like or the current solution stack you're sitting on. You might be using a number of integrations, you might be using a number of sites which are running on Webster Commerce. So we really need to plan it out, and that's why migrations are mostly phased. So you try to achieve something in one phase, then more in the second phase, and while you're moving from one phase to another, you are getting more confidence on what you want to achieve and what is possible with the migration that you're trying to do. They're iterative, so maybe if you have a number of sites that you're currently hosting on-prem, you might want to go live with one site right now, see how the success looks like, and then slowly and steadily make your other sites go live as well. They are error prone, yes, because it's not easy to migrate. Because if you, let's say if you're sitting on the latest version of Webster Commerce on-prem, and then you suddenly decide, okay, you know what, I need to move to the cloud, then it might be a very straightforward job. There's no migration in terms of software migration required. You just need to move your assets from one location to another, and you should be pretty much in a position to go live. But that's not usually the case. Usually you'll be sitting on version 7 or version 6 or even older versions, and then you have been trying to push this migration for a very long time because you had so many customizations. You were always worried how the customizations would look like in the new version, whether they will be whether it would be possible to move those customizations or not. So as a result of which you never migrated, and now you are in a situation where you are sitting on a very older version. You cannot take advantage of what is latest available in the market that you are entitled to use, but you cannot because you're sitting on an older one. So yes, a lot of your customizations might not be movable. Once we start looking into it, we might realize a lot of your customization cannot be moved. But the good thing is, most probably all those customizations that you did back in the day might be available as a feature in the newer version of the platform. But let's say if it's not, then we try to see how we can reprogram those customizations in a widget format so that we can move it to the latest version. And in the future also, if you migrate, it should be easy for you to migrate that component without any challenges. Uh, and migrations, they're not the end goal, obviously. So once you migrate, now the next things has to follow, like performance tuning, your SEO tuning. You want to make sure your business logic follows the best industry practices, which would be partially taken care by the migration process as well. But then you are in a stage now where you want to tune it up, where you want to make sure that your customers are getting the best experience there is available, and then it just adds on to your migration process. So what at Royal Server, what we do is we include all of these things in a single package, because these are some things that every customer is going to do. It's not like, whether they might do it later or sooner, depending upon their timelines, pricing, budget, and so on and so forth. But what we have done is we have packaged all of this together so that the customer can be, tension free. They don't have to really bother about that. Okay, there's something else awaiting after the migration. Once you're done with the migration, you are pretty much done from all sides. Our focus today predominantly is going to be migration to using the AWS platform and using the latest iteration of Webster Commerce, which also supports the jQuery store. Why we are highlighting jQuery store? Because it's kind of a big jump for IBM to get rid of the old Dojo library and move on to the jQuery. There are a lot of advantages to it, and IBM brought this in their Modpack 4, which was early this year. And at Royal Cyber, we have already done 4 implementations on the jQuery, and we can definitely see there are a lot of advantages, as I'll be talking about them in the following slides. And any customer is more than if you want to experience those, you can always reach out to us. We have a demo store available. You can just spend your time there and see how the new UI. It's not different from the look and feel. If you have spent some time on Feature Pack 8 Aurora Store, it's very much similar, but the whole architecture has changed. So now they have replaced Dojo with jQuery. They have reduced the number of JSP files, moved a lot of functionality to the jQuery library. And the best part is all the components, elements on the page, now they are being populated by jQuery, which kind of reduces your development time in terms of building the UI by 70%. So some of the advantages that jQuery brings you is it's open source, so there's no cost associated with it. At no point in time in the future you will be reached out by Google or jQuery and they'll ask you to pay any additional money for licensing and stuff. On the contrary, it keeps getting updated. There are so many communities which are which are working on this. So there's so much extensive support and new features coming in every single day that you will always be abreast with what is new in the market. And using very little amount of effort, you should be able to use that features on your site. jQuery, it's a JavaScript library. Gone are the days when computation power was a privilege. Now even the mobile handsets, they come with quad octa-core processors, which are very capable of handling or crunching numbers using the JavaScript business logic. So which enables you to push a number of transactions or calculations or business logic on the client side, thereby letting your server breathe a little bit more. So it kind of shares the load. Your customers will have a better experience both on the UI and the backend logic, and that's what jQuery brings onto the Aurora store now. It also helps you make the site a lot cleaner. You'll not have to keep on including so many different JSs. The store comes with its own build script. What it does, it will combine all the JS together, minify it, and convert them into a less number of files, so that your response time on the front end improves. Your load times is better, and the best part about jQuery is like it does not require Flash, or like even on browsers which do not support Flash, you can achieve the same UI, the fluidity, look and feel using jQuery. It works in all browsers, whether it's desktop or mobile, and it just makes the whole experience very unified for the customer who are quickly switching between mobile browser, tablet browser, or the desktop browser. In addition to these features, some of the technical advantages that your development team or your vendor, or if you have a in-house team, what they will see is like minification has so there's a build script available which can minify all of your JavaScript and CSS, so you do not have to worry about additional plugins or softwares that might be required for it. So before the build, you can automate the build using WCBD, and all this minification, it can be taken care of using the WCBD script, which will help you improve the performance on the UI side. The load times would improve, the response time would improve, and your customers will get a better experience. There's also additional functionality such as your eSpots. Now you can control whether they need to be loaded along with the page, or you want a delay so that the page loads up first and then all your eSpots are loading, which can help you with the CDN. So CDN can have a divided control on the page, and you can control what loads first and what loads later. And if you are on an older version of the Aurora store, you would realize that using Ajax, you can make multiple calls on the same page, which even though gave a slightly better experience, but it kind of complicated the whole code. So there were teams like experiencing difficulties in trying to understand how the Ajax is working, and in case they want to make any changes, it used to get complicated. With the jQuery store, all the changes or all the filters, they will request a reload of the page, making it more easier, simpler, and it's also become simpler for the developers to make any changes or maintain whatever the functionality or customizations they have done on the page. So that was some of the features that jQuery brought you, and as part of the migration, we have certain points that we keep in mind, and which are really very important for even an end user who's planning to do a migration, irrespective of the fact from which version they're coming in from, and irrespective of the fact which version they're going to. So we do need to keep these 10 points in mind, like we need to understand where we are and where we need to be, because that will help you break down what can be moved as part of the migration and what cannot be moved. We need to do a proper capacity planning in terms of like what are our expectations, like looking at the load of the page, how many users are visiting the site on the current platform. If we move to the cloud, how much traffic are we expecting, whether we need to go with what kind of licensing we need to use, right? What kind of CDN we need to use, which can handle that kind of traffic. Whether if we are moving to Amazon, do we need to stick with Amazon CDN, or we need to move with Akamai CDN, because the interaction points would change. If we are on Amazon, it makes more sense to use Amazon CD and so on and so forth. So all that needs to be taken into account before we start on the migration process. We need to understand the current customizations. A lot of things which might be working on your current platform might already be phased out on the new one, or it might not be. So for example, now IBM is coming with version 9 of SO Commerce, which will be using the Spring framework, right? So let's say if you have a customization that you have done on the existing platform which uses strut, so it might not be very straightforward, even though IBM will be supporting struts on version 9, and slowly and steadily they will be phasing it out, and it will be entirely Spring. But we need to understand what kind of approach we have taken for the customizations that we have done, the integration with the third party, what approach have it taken, whether we have done a API integration, we have done a REST API integration, or normal web service integration. So we need to understand that, and when we are making this plan, we need to see how we are going to move that to the new platform that we are planning to choose. Migration schedule. Migration always has too many different dependencies. Like let's say if you are integrated with a number of different third-party solutions, you need to see how you're going to integrate with them once you are on the new platform. Almost all third-party solutions nowadays support RESTful API, which is which is the industry standard right now. So in case any of the previous integrations that you have done, let's say if you're sitting on an older version of ERP, which did not have RESTful API at that time, or it was in-house, it was built in-house, does not support REST API. So we need to see that we have our ERP team or any database team needs to understand that, and they need to make sure that they have the interfaces built before the migration can complete, so that the new platform continue to speak with the ERP in the same fashion, but using a different interface, because your cloud will not have a tight integration with your third parties, irrespective of whether they're hosted. So we need to make sure that we decouple the commerce system, and it should continue to be in a position to interact with these systems, provided that these systems also support the RESTful API. We need to do the right kind of migration. So let's say we need to understand if we are migrating to this platform right now, what is the future roadmap. We do not want to migrate to something which will become old in a month's time. So we really need to work with our solution provider, or IBM in this case, to understand what their roadmap is. When are they going to launch the new iteration? Let's say if we are thinking about migration right now, I would not suggest to have a migration done to version 8, but rather wait for the version 9, which should be available to us early next year, so that we can plan out all. But I think it's a good time to start planning or looking into it, because information about version 9 is available. If you missed our previous webinar, which was regarding what's new in version 9 and how we can help you migrate there, you can always reach out to us, and we can schedule a one-on-one meeting with you to make you understand what version 9 brings. But yeah, but the idea is like we should not jump the gun. We should just see what the roadmap looks like, and that we make sure that we are migrating to a platform which would be new at least for a few quarters. Data is always a very important aspect of any e-commerce site or any site for that matter. And we need to, and a lot changes when you are sitting on an older version and a new version is available. It's right now it's all about SEO, how your data is set up, how data shows up on the site, how the tags are generated on the site, whether it's done automatically or manually. And we need to make sure that all the processes that we have manual or automated take into consideration what all is available now, so that your page is ranked higher on the Google, Bing, or any other browser. So we have to make sure that we follow their rules, their suggestions, and make changes on our side so that your page ranking gets better. We need to understand whether we want to have our data centrally managed or it need to be decentralized. Again, that is driven by how your current setup looks like and what is your future plan is, or what your future roadmap is. And these things should be taken into account as well. We need to have a staging environment. We want to see how it will look like before we go live, obviously. So I would say never compromise on the staging environment. I have seen a number of customers in the past who kind of do without a staging. And if you're on-prem, mostly the customer do not go with the staging as it's an additional cost. But thanks to the cloud infrastructure, it's more easier to have a staging where you can actually preview how everything would look like before you can push it to the production. So please take advantage of that. You need to understand when you want to do a soft launch or a hard launch. You need to get your internal customers onto the site to lock all your requirements, in the sense like that you need to understand from them what you have thought originally would work or not, and if there are any changes required, that feedback should flow back to your vendor in time so that they can make those changes and still hit the deadline. So all these things needs to be done and plan accordingly. And even though if your migration is done, that might not include all the success elements that you started with. You might have to looking at the timelines or like challenges that came during the migration process, some hidden issues and all that stuff. You might plan to move some of the requirements or defects to a different phase. So the final success might be far, but even that approach, you should not fear from taking it, because yeah, we need to break down our targets into smaller targets, and achieve them as we move forward. So also, as process of migration, we understand the customer is moving from older version and a different setup where a lot of stuff is done manually. And as we are talking about the age of DevOps, everything has to be automated. Otherwise, we have seen clients spending so much on maintaining their individual internal teams who are busy with build and deploy. They are manually testing the site, running the whole use case tests, like which can run up to 500,000. So imagine a team doing that on a daily basis or a weekly basis before the build and deploy. Now everything can be automated. We have already processes in place using open source technologies, which can actually help you automate all your test cases without spending a dime on the licenses. All you have to do, or a business user has to do, is a click on a URL. It'll automatically run all those test cases, generate a visually appealing report that you can see. You can share that with your business users, your stakeholders, your vendor, your partner, and so that they can get the feedback and start working on the fixes as soon as they can. So using these tools, we have broken down or reduced the time from days to actually hours. Like in a matter of 2 to 3 hours, you can actually execute 500 to 600 test cases, get the report, and share that with all the interested parties. UI is another focus area. So one of the focus area when it comes to so once we are done with the migration, we have broken down the whole migration into 3 focus areas, which is your business logic, your front end logic, and your SEO. So this is a time when you have successfully done the migration. All the code that was working previously is working now on the new platform as well, along with any of the new features that you might have. Now it's time where we want to see if there are any bottlenecks with respect to how the data is being handled by the site. So we want to see and take advantage of whatever is available. Like just for example purposes, I'll quote in version 9 of IBM, they are going to move from EJBs to JPA, which is your Java persistent objects. So we have heard about it, like it has been there for a very long time, but how many of us are actually using it? And I think you all would agree when I say not many. Uh, Partially because the platform was more EJBs centric. It was the toolkit that we use, the RAD, is it helps to make EJBs, so everyone ends up using EJBs, so on and so forth. If we were to going to use JPA, it would have been some customization that we need to do on our side, and it would not be that straightforward. But what IBM is doing with version 9, they're going to provide you a tool which will help you convert your EJBs into JPAs. So definitely that will help you get better performance. Again, EJBs are of all different types. Session beans are definitely a no-go. Like, you do not, still cannot continue running your SQL queries to get the responses and then push it to your UI. So once we get rid of all these things, your response times, your load times, everything is going to improve. And that's what we do as part of the performance enhancement. When we look into the business logic, we make sure that there are no bottlenecks. We are following the best industry practices, and all the data is flowing to the UI flawlessly without taking any additional time, irrespective of the traffic and so on and so forth. So our next focus area is a UI. More than 90% of people spend their time on the front end, and it is really important that they see their results in time. Otherwise, they're just going to walk through. And based on one study, we were able to see that uh, you get the maximum conversion when your pages load between 2.4 to 2.7 seconds. So you have more than like close to 1.9% conversion. And as you start taking up more time to load the page, your conversion falls, and you do not want to lose those dollars, right? So that is another focus area where we check out the UI, make sure that there are no bottlenecks there. The code is minified, CSS, JS. We are using the best industry practices. Let's say if we see that JSP is taking too much time, we can always use alternate technologies like, as I mentioned, now IBM is using jQuery as a front end. So that's one of the best practices to revert to a different JavaScript library if your JSP code is taking too much time to load. You can use AngularJS. So the limits are plenty, and thankfully IBM is giving us jQuery out of the box, so we might not have to revert to that. But in case you're sitting on an older one, you do not want to use the jQuery store, there's still many options that you can look into. Eventually, the god of all of them is SEO. If your pages do not show up on the Google side, you are not going to get any piece of that cake that Google gives you or Bing gives you. So you need to make sure that you're getting more and more traffic organically without you spending those advertising dollars. And for that, you need to make sure that your SEO is up to the mark. You are following the best practices. You are following the practices that are being laid out by various search engines like Google, Bing, so on and so forth. So that's the third area that we focus on as part of performance tuning your migration. We want to make sure that your pages get the visibility, your product pages get the visibility in the format that gives your page more ranking, like your rating is showing up on the PDPs, your pricing is showing up, so on and so forth. So we do that as well. And as I was mentioning previously, the testing would be automated. So you either do not need to maintain a team, or you need to maintain a very minimalistic or a minimum people you need to keep on your team to take care of any of the testing efforts. Your build and deploy would be automated. So you don't, the very moment when the developer commits the code, it automatically will initiate a continuous build process, which will build the code, create a deployment package, put the artifacts that are a part of the new code in the artifact repository. It will automatically initiate the test script, which will run the test cases which are corresponding to that particular module that has been updated. The report would be generated, which will be shared with the business user or all the stakeholders via the email, and all of this would be automatic. So you don't really have to run around different teams, checking out the schedule, whether they can do a build and deployment or not. Once the build is done and deploy code has been deployed, you do not have to run behind the QA team for them to do the QA testing and generate a report. They do not have to generate the report manually. So as you can see, it's an effort worth days and weeks, which we have broken down into a number of days and a number of hours, and that to just using the open source technologies. So we already have those integrations in place, which we will be more than happy to share with you. We have number of, so that kind of brings me towards the end of this webinar. We have a number of satisfied customers that we have been working with. And in case you want to see a larger demo, in the sense you want to experience how this build and deploy works, automated build and deploy, automated testing works, you want to understand in detail, like, or you want to see the case studies of various customers that we have worked for, how we have helped them improve their performance, take all the pain away from them. So now they're just focusing on the revenue, how they can improve their revenue rather than thinking about maintaining the site, so on and so forth. You can always reach out to us. If you want more details on our migration package, I can share the efforts depending upon which version of commerce you're sitting on, pricing, so on and so forth. If you want to see what add-ons we have which can help you with the migration, again, you can reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to answer any of those. So please feel free to ask me any questions if you have, and I would be more than happy to answer those. So I have not seen anything coming to me till now, so I'm going to assume that we do not have any questions. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much for your time again. I really appreciate you guys spending your time with us. And if you have any questions, if you want to know more about version 9, just reach out to us and I'll be more than happy to schedule a one-on-one meeting with you guys. Thank you so much. You guys have a good day.